Welcome to The Next Word. I'm your host, Christine Warnke, and today we have a special guest, Raymone Bain, the former spokesperson and personal general manager of the late international music icon Michael Jackson. Ms. Bain was the first woman to serve as spokesperson to the King of Pop, Michael Jackson. She was the first woman or African American to serve as Mr. Jackson's general manager and the first woman and African American to be appointed by Mr. Jackson as president, COO of the Michael Jackson Company, serving Michael Jackson's music licensee agent for MyJack, Moran, Michael Jackson Music, and Sony ATV Music Publishing and Conglomerates, with a total valuation of several $1 billion. Her early career began with representing boxer Hector Camacho and was later expanded to include sports figures like Muhammad Ali and Michael Tyson. Bain's work with Michael Jackson also included representing international tennis star Serena Williams, Janet Jackson, Kenneth Babyface Edmonds, Boyz II Men, as well as comedians Steve Harvey, Bernie Mac, and Cedric the Entertainer. Ms. Bain is a graduate of HBCU Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, and Georgetown University Law Center, where she received a Juris Doctor. Welcome, my friend, Raymone.
Thank you.
I'm so happy you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
So, how did you get to work for Michael Jackson? Let's start that whole history.
Our paths had crossed. I was Muhammad Ali. I was very blessed to work for. And we were down in Atlanta, Georgia. He was being honored by the Georgia State House of Representatives. When we left there, he said, well, Raymone, I would like for you to schedule a meeting for me to go by and say hello to President Jimmy Carter. Well, I was one of 10 in Jimmy Carter's campaign. Started when I was a junior at Spelman College. I called over to the Carter Center. Jimmy Carter said, well, I'd love to have Muhammad Ali come. And in fact, that is how, just a little sidebar, that is also how I was able to meet Babyface, because Ali wanted to go over to LaFace Records to meet LA and Babyface because they were so popular and he'd heard their names. After the meeting over at the Carter Center, President Carter pulled me aside and he says, well, Raymone, I need you to do me a favor. And I said, well, what is that, Mr. President? He says, well, I'd like for you to introduce me to Michael Jackson. I said, well, I don't know him. He says, well, that's never stopped you, you know, and so we got a big laugh. And I asked, well, can you tell me a little bit about, you know, what it is you want to talk to him about so I can know? And he says, well, I want to meet with him because I'm doing so much work globally, and I'd like for him to partner with me. And they did. I called Michael Jackson through one of his assistants. And if you look online at some point, you will see that Michael Jackson and Jimmy Carter called a press conference down in Atlanta at the Omni, and they announced Heal Atlanta, Heal LA, where they were immunizing children and adults in both Atlanta and LA. And of course, we know of Jimmy Carter's global work, and we know of Michael Jackson's global work. He'd given over $300 million to various charities in his lifetime. Well, that was the first encounter. And as I began working with Serena, and she was killing them in tennis, I called Doracine, her mom, and I said, Serena and Venus are doing so marvelous. I'd like to do something for her and for Venus. I said, but they have everything, and then what they don't have, I can't afford to buy them. What can I do to let Serena know that I really appreciate her and I appreciate the opportunity that I've been given with her? She says, well, if you introduce them to Michael Jackson, they will die. But don't bring him to a tennis match because they'll lose. And we laughed. I called back out to his office and I said, we're going to be in LA at the end of the year for the WTA Tour Championship. And I'd like to surprise Serena and Venus by bringing them out to Neverland. They got back to me immediately. Oh, Michael Jackson is a huge fan. He'd like for you to bring him. And I said, well, it's a surprise, so we can't say anything. Make a long story short, I didn't know that Neverland Valley Ranch was 4 hours from LA. And by the time we got to Oxnard and Ventura, Serena says, well, we're going to have to turn around. Thank you for your surprise, but I got to get back. I play Cleistus tomorrow. I said, oh, he's going to be so disappointed. She said, he who? I said, Michael Jackson. She says, wait just a minute. You mean the Michael Jackson, the king of pop, the bad, the Billie Jean, the Thriller Michael Jackson? She tells the driver, turn around. Let's go back. We literally turned back to go to LA. We get to Neverland, and her sister, whom I was close to, Yetunde, who regrettably has transitioned, Isha, Lindrea, Yetunde's kids with Yetunde were all there. Michael walks in and everybody freezes, but Serena and I. We are the loquacious deliverers. We had to ask everything. Where are the awards? Where are the jackets? Where are the kids? And everybody is still kind of shocked, but Serena and I. So as Michael is taking us around Neverland and we're trying on jackets, and Serena asked, well, where are your awards? I don't see any. And he says, well, you're not going to see anything like that here. I don't want my kids to be under any pressure to feel that they have to follow in my footsteps. Look up, he pulls up in front and has Grace, his assistant, tell us to get in the car. And Serena says, wait just a minute. Is Michael Jackson driving? And I said, well, yeah, it appears. She says, oh, no, I have a tennis match tomorrow. I'm not getting in a car with Michael Jackson. I've read a lot about Michael Jackson, but I've never read that anybody has seen Michael Jackson driving down Sunset Boulevard. And we had a big laugh about that. We get in the car. So Michael says, and I'm telling this long story, but Michael says, you all seem very close. Are you relatives? And Serena says, no, she's my publicist. Who's your publicist? He says, oh, well, I have 6 of them and blah, blah, blah. Well, this is a 19-year-old Serena. She says, wait just a minute, Michael. You mean to tell me you have 6 publicists with the bad press you have? You need to fire them and hire her. And that's what he did. That's what he did, just like that.
What a
he
story.
got my number right then and there, gave me his numbers, and it was so amazing. The next day, he was having to go into court, and he was late because we were there at his house the day before, and we stayed until, the wee hours. And he was late going into court, and I think that day he told the judge that he'd been bit by a spider. And Serena called me up and says, Raymone, did you see any spiders at Neverland? I said, no, in that fabulous place. No, I didn't. And it was amazing because from there, when there was an incident where he dangled blanket, he called to get my recommendations. He had a pretty contentious interview with a friend of mine, Ed Bradley, who at the time was with CBS, and I had to kind of call and mediate that. And then there was a raid, one of 21 raids on Neverland Valley, and I and my longtime colleague, Adine King, whom you know, we were there watching it horrified, and I picked up the phone and called, and I said, Grace, is Mr. Jackson okay? And she says, yeah, well, what's wrong? I said, there's another raid on Neverland. She says, what? We're out of town. Hold on. And Michael came to the phone, and I said, well, Mr. Jackson, I was just calling to see if you were okay because it's another raid. And finally, he was arrested. He was arraigned, and he called me from jail. And he said, can you come out here? I know I've been contacting you with regards to these various incidents and situations, but would you consider working for me? And I couldn't believe it, and I started calling up everybody, and they thought I was being attacked. I was like, and so the rest is history. I worked for him for 9 years.
Wow.
And, you know, it was an amazing experience. And I thank, you know, Kenny Babyface, 13-time Grammy Award, my first client. But you can't just walk in with the Michael Jackson. There was Serena, and there was Kenny Edmonds, who validated me. There were Nate and Sean and Wanye, Boys to Men, who had been on his album, his History album, who said, oh yeah, she's the real deal. So I thank all of them, and you know, people talk to me about Michael, but there was Hector Camacho, Tommy Hearns, Marvin Hagler, Muhammad Ali, Steve Harvey, Richard Pryor. So many people entrusted me, and Deion Sanders. And I thank all of them because it takes people, particularly Steve Harvey and Walter Latham, bringing others to me, and Kenny and Quadrille Amin. It takes a village almost. And I'm very grateful and blessed. I am a women's advocate, but I thank the men who took the courage and were trailblazers to hire me to represent them. I'm forever grateful for that.
What a story. I had no idea, but you're right. All those people validated you.
Yes, they did.
To him.
Yes, they did. And it has been an incredible journey. Ups and downs. It's not been easy, because as I look back, particularly beginning my career in boxing with Hector Camacho and Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns and Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson, all of those guys, boxing was a male-dominated sport. And even in leaving, transitioning from boxing, in the levels that I matriculated for everyone, I was always the only woman or the only African American. And it was I didn't realize until recently some of the experiences were absolutely unequivocally discriminatory. But when you are dealing with people who have embraced you and entrusted you, you don't have time to think about those things. Right. You have to work hard to get through the roadblocks. And that's what I found myself doing. If you can't go to the right, then go to the left. And if you can't go to the right or the left, you go in the middle. Right. You do what you have to do to accomplish what it is you need to accomplish. But as I have told young people who come to me, you have to maintain your morality, you have to be ethical, and you have to do what's right. Right. You don't always get paid back immediately, but at the end of the day, when the dust settles, you see that you are far more accomplished and you have been able to achieve more by being ethical.
So on that positive note, we're going to take a short break and we'll come back to this fascinating story. You're watching The Next Word, and we will be right back.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Can you see anything different as a pill? No. You don't know?
Fentanyl is being mixed into everything now. There's only one thing that will save somebody's life. That is naloxone nasal spray.
Fentanyl, it's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
Why would drug dealers put a lethal dose of fentanyl in drugs if they know it's so harmful?
Really just all about the money.
I just didn't realize that one pill could change your whole life.
More kids should know.
Welcome back to The Next Word. I'm your host, Christine Warnke. And Raymone Bain, who is the former spokesperson and manager of the world music icon Michael Jackson, is with us to share both personal and professional insights about this truly artistic figure spanning so many decades. And even today, the new generation understands him. Can we talk about that?
I mean, he's made an indelible imprint in music, as an entrepreneur, as a philanthropist. And last time I checked, we had 3.8 billion certified fans. His music transcends age. And he has become even more popular now than he was when he was alive, and he's been dead 16 years. 3.8 billion certified fans. That's a lot of fans.
A lot of fans.
And he loved them, and they loved him. From the time that I saw and met many of them out in Santa Maria for the 6 months, I mean, his fans literally left home, checked in hotels, and were there every single day for 6 months. And when we went to Japan, we went to Europe, we went to the Middle East, they followed him wherever he went. And I remember in London, we couldn't go back to a hotel because 25,000 fans congregated outside of the hotel. And I didn't realize it, but Mr. Jackson was ordering pizza to send to the fans. And the hotel manager / general manager, owner, said, well, Ms. Bain, we'd love for Mr. Jackson to come back, but we don't have the security capabilities to handle the numbers of people who congregate. And not only were they outside of the hotel, but they were checking in the hotel. They were all over the place. And I thought that that was one of the most happy times that he experienced, because he loved them and they loved him. And they were also very, very kind and so very nice. And that's how he was. He had a very, very wonderful spirit. And I found that a lot of the fans who came out to support him were the same way. They were extremely kind.
And that spirit, and even I felt that. I had never met Michael Jackson, of course, but I sensed that as well. And can you talk about that, like those kinds, the kind of personality that had, the empathy he had for people?
He did. He was extremely warm. He was very humble. And it's unfortunate, the accusations, but he was acquitted. And I find that it's very difficult when someone has transcended and he's not here to defend himself. The attorneys can, I can, but it's so unfortunate that having been acquitted and having transcended 16 years ago, he's not here to be able to defend himself. And that's rather heartbreaking.
Do you think, though, people today think differently of him, given all what's come out, all the music that's every day that's played? I mean, you walk into a store and you hear a Michael Jackson song. You know,
well, there have been different phases. While we were going through a trial, people ran from him. There were only a few who supported and who even called to say, we are with you and we're supporting you. That was very hurtful to him, and I can count them on one hand, truly. Then over time, when he transcended, more people began to really analyze and look. It took a minute. When he was honored by the World Music Awards, it was very difficult to find people who would come and give him his award. The organizers and owners of World Music Award, whom I still am friends with, and they're great people. They were so heartbroken because they were calling so many people to give Michael Jackson his award, and they wouldn't do it. They didn't want to be on the same stage. And that's why I love Beyonce now, because she defied everybody. And she and her mom, Tina, they were like, Beyonce is going to do this. And I will never forget it. Michael never forgot it. And it's acts of kindness and courage like that that separates the men from the boys. You know, we can all follow the leader. But she stepped up when others in her camp said, oh no, you don't want to do it. Babyface stepped up, Snoop, so many others were very kind. And as I named those, which was about 6 people, there were thousands, on the other hand, who wouldn't take his calls. And he fought back. The misconception about him, and you know, someone whom I looked at as my mentor and my big brother / father figure, former Mayor Marion Barry. Mm-hmm. Him and his wife Cora and others, and they have courage, and Michael Jackson did. And I used to tell Marion all the time, I said, Mayor, you know, he's like you. He has a lot of courage. The more people come at him, the stronger he becomes. He has this spiritual fiber, this strong spiritual fiber. And I would ask him sometimes, how do you do it? You know, the way you're depicted, you've been demeaned, diminished, defamed. How do you deal with that? And he says, well, nobody can take away from whom I am, Raymone. And all I can do is try to do the best that I can. When I'm in the studio behind that mic, and when I get on the stage, I can only show my best. And I can only, when people have an opportunity to meet me and be around me, I can only show them who I am. And I'm not this person that I am depicted to be. And if I believed that, and if I reacted to it, I could not come out here and do my trade on the level that I do it. And I have to rise above that. And I've learned that no matter how you're attacked, and I learned it from the mayor and others that I've been around, no matter how much you're attacked, no matter how you are depicted, you have to rise above it, because it can kill you. It can kill you dead from, the stress and the depression of reading about you, and you wonder, well, who is that person that they are talking about? And in the positions that I have had with all of the clients, I have seen such courage, because it takes nothing for somebody to write an article that they know is misinformed. And many of them do it because it sells. And some folk will do anything to get a hit or to drive the reader. And then there are others who are ethical and want to be considered and remembered as legendary journalists. And those are the ones that I like dealing with. But there are so many of them that are not that way. And it can get into the head, particularly of the athlete, when you are consistently reading about you and you know it's not you. Many of them feel that they have to go an extra mile to prove that what's being written or said about me is not true. And many of them find that they have to go beyond the call of duty. When you get to the level of a Michael Jackson or a Marion Barry or a Babyface or any a senior member of Congress or Senate or president, you can't respond to everything. You learn that. You cannot. I found it because there has been misinformation written about me and said about me. And oh my God, at first I had a hard time accepting that because, I'm not in the public eye. I'm behind the scenes. And one of the things that a former governor of Georgia said, George Busby, he said, I'm a workhorse, not a show horse. Mm-hmm. And I always liked that. I was, young growing up, but when I heard him say that, it was like, that resonated with me. And that's how I've always tried being. I'm the workhorse, not the show horse. Mm-hmm. And I have been blessed to represent people who are astronomically great in what it is they do. And they have decided to remain humble and low-key and behind the scenes. You have to do certain things in order to market your music, market your records, market your concerts, market your brand, market your perfume, your hair care. Mm-hmm. And so we expect that. But at one point, I think a number of folk who are high profile across the board felt that they had an obligation to set the record straight. And they were aggressive in doing so. I think many of them now have taken a more low-key approach. They're not as stressed out about having to prove who they are. They're like Michael Jackson was. What? They'll get to know me through my music and how I conduct myself. And I hope that throughout my lifetime, people will realize that I'm not capable of doing the heinous things that I've been accused of doing. And he was acquitted. And, that's amazing how, in some chambers it didn't exist.
This was fascinating. I wish we could talk for hours. Your stories are amazing, and the people you've represented, and I can't thank you enough for doing this and being here and giving us all a whole great perspective on Michael Jackson and all your clients.
Well, thank you. And, we're celebrating Black History Month, and my mentors were Coretta King and C. Dolores Tucker and my mom and my grandmom and so many people that I admire, and it's so many women and men who have paved the way for me to have been able to do the things that I'm doing, and I am forever grateful to them.
And we're grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to my guest, Ms. Raymone Bain, and to you, our viewers, for watching. If you know of an interesting person who would make for a good conversation and interview, please email us here at the station at info@mmctv.org. You've been watching The Next Word, and stay tuned for our next episode.